Welcome to another Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined by the Mighty Joe Yeager. Mighty Joe, man, how you doing today?
Doing good, Jared. How about yourself?
I'm good. I think let's just dispense with the pleasantries and dive right in. We actually have a lot of good questions, so we're going to try and fit a bunch of these in. TTU Crawl wants to know, with it looking like a lefty quarterback at the helm, of course McLean Carter is who he's referring to, does that affect the offensive line in specific formations at all? Does the right tackle become more important like the left tackle usually is, and do receivers and running backs switch sides at all? I don't know about the running backs necessarily or the receivers. And you know what's funny is, as far as who's left tackle and right tackle, and I can't remember which guy it is, Mighty Joe, but either Bruffy or Steele, one of them just preferred that side. One of them was fine either way, and one of them just was so much better setting up and in pass pro. And I can't remember which one, but that was the case. It wasn't really like, oh, let's have him protect the blind side. It's just one was far more comfortable on one side than the other, and the other one didn't matter. So that's kind of how that's set up. So I think they're going to keep that like that. And as far as some of the pass protection and stuff, yeah, I think they just have to flip it. That's what the coaches have always told me. They just flip their pass protection.
Yeah, that's right. And the right tackle, his importance is amplified. I mean, there's no doubt because he's got his back to the right tackle. So you're blind side, right? Yep. So Steele becomes a more important person over there. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, you're, I think, exactly right as far as you're not going to totally flip your offense around just because you got a left-handed quarterback. Yeah. It's much easier to take that one guy, that quarterback, and have him do the mental work than have all those receivers and skill position players suddenly having to learn things completely different. You know, what if you bring in your right-handed quarterback? Then they got to go back. Yeah. That's way too much confusion. So you got to keep it simple.
Yeah, and Kingsbury's a sharp guy. He's not a guy intimidated by a left-hand quarterback. And there are offensive coordinators and coaches out there who just won't flat out won't look at lefties because they don't want to switch things around. Kingsbury, he keeps it simple and has a smart approach to it. Texan says, if this defense is legit, and he thinks it is, how do we think it is affecting Kingsbury's decision on the starting quarterback? What do you think, Mighty Joe?
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. I mean, and that's everything that we've been hearing. I mean, basically, you got a defense you can believe in right now, and a defense that they believe is good enough to keep them right in every ball game. But only if your quarterback doesn't make a bunch of mistakes and turn the ball over and making bad decisions and can't run the offense. So, and we heard this from Kingsbury, but I also heard it from Coach Johns as well. What they're looking for is that classic game manager type of a quarterback, somebody who, in his words, is that he doesn't have to win the games, but he can't lose it. Yeah. You know, and I mean, so you just read into that whatever you want, but there's no question. I mean, it's not the old days of yore where your defense, you're lucky if you can hold them to 50 points, and so your quarterback has got to go out there and be Pat Mahomes, you know, or Graham Harrell or somebody like that. So that's not the deal. There's less pressure on the quarterback, and you're just looking for a smart guy to make the right decisions and not do a lot of dumb things back there.
Yeah, and Kingsbury reiterated that earlier this week in a post-practice availability, I think on Tuesday. He said, look, we don't have a horse like Mahomes back there, so we're not going to be running the offense like that. I think the running game also is going to affect the fact that they do return the offensive line that they know can get a push up front. They do have several options at running back who they know can get it done. Maybe not necessarily a superstar, so to speak, as of yet, but some quality backs and depth there, more depth than I think we all were expecting going into the offseason. So yeah, I think all that plays into the part your decision at quarterback, because we all know there isn't a Pat Mahomes or a Graham Harrell on the roster right now. Okie Raider 01 wants to know, how many of the true freshmen do we think will get legitimate playing time this year, and which ones? Well, things are different now with the whole, you can play 4 games and not cost you your red shirt. So I don't know. It depends on your definition of significant time. More than those 4 games, I'm not sure how many are actually going to get, because why burn their shirt if you can play them for a third of the season, but still retain that year of eligibility?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It is. I mean, look, I think Alan Bowman is going to play. Okay. I think he's definitely, is he going to play in more than 4 games? I don't know, but I think he's going to get a shot. I think he may get some starts. So you got to figure him in there. I think they probably want to redshirt at least one of those freshman running backs. I think they prefer to. I'm not sure they're going to be able to redshirt both of them.
Because they both look good. I changed my mind on who I like more too.
Right.
Every week.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and stick with the guy that I've been going with, Tajon Henry, and say that I think he's going to play quite a bit this year. But I've seen him play more too. So I mean, who knows? But I think one of those guys is going to play. Then I think a couple of the receivers are definitely going to figure in there. Royals and probably Ezukama.
Carter was mentioned on Tuesday as well by Kingsbury as somebody, and Vasher. He keeps Keyshawn Carter's name. The further we get into camp, the more his name is brought up. Like the lights coming on for him. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, that's right. And if all the more if he can help at special teams too, you know, as a returner. So yeah, he's a factor as well. So I think probably those are the main guys that you're looking at, you know, to play.
Yeah, I don't think any of the offensive linemen are going to play more than 4 games because I don't think you have depth there. You have veteran depth there, obviously. Defensive line, it's kind of the same thing. Jalen Hutchins is a guy who maybe, but well, again, you have a lot of veteran depth there, so I don't really. You have such a veteran roster. This is where you're supposed to be. This is a healthy roster where you can redshirt and develop your freshmen instead of having to play them a lot. So I don't think a lot of them are actually going to play more than 4 games. OBX Raider wants to know who you think has the toughest non-conference schedule in the Big 12 this year.
Well, there aren't too many that are that tough if you get right down to it. But I think Texas has a pretty tough schedule. I mean, they got to go to Maryland. I know Maryland's not any great powerhouse, but you go to their place. You know, that's a fairly tough game. Yeah, you could lose that game. You can lose. Texas could lose that game. Of course, they get USC in Austin. Yeah. They're likely going to lose that game. Yeah. They get I think Tulsa sandwiched in there in between. Yeah. They can be a little bit pesky, but yeah, UT should take care of those guys. UT should take care of TU. I think that's probably about the toughest one of the bunch. West Virginia has a fairly tough schedule. I mean, you may want to comment on that, but I'd probably go with Texas.
No, I think Texas is who I would have gone with, and they, them in Oklahoma, they should have the toughest, when you think about it. TCU playing Ohio State, I think you got to say that. So I think TCU's got to be in there just for the fact that you have Ohio State. Even all the drama with Urban Meyer, Ohio State's still very talented, so one of the top programs in the country. So that's really tough for TCU. That stands out. And then Tech, I mean, the fact that you play Houston, you get them at home, but then you play Ole Miss, who I know is down and has all the problems. They're on probation and all that, but they're still a pretty respectable program as far as they've brought in a lot of talent in recent years. So Texas in the top half. Texas their schedule's in the top half of the Big 12 for sure. Texan 44 says 141 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, 108 rushing yards and a touchdown. Who are those 2 players? Who's the first one? Who's going to catch? Who's going to put that up as far as receiving?
Yeah, I'll go with Antoine Wesley.
All right, I'm going to go with Vasher. That looks like a Vasher stat line there. What about the rushing? What about, 108 rushing yards, which is extremely specific, and a touchdown?
Yeah. It's one of 2 guys. It's one of 2 guys.
But your guy, my guy.
Yeah, we got the your guy, my guy on both of these, I think. But all right, I got to be loyal. I can't bail on him even before the season starts. So I'm saying Trey King.
All right, I'm going to go with DeLeon Ward. He's been Kingsbury mentioned him again that he's been flashing as much. Him and Joe Wallace have been the 2 guys flashing the most in the scrimmages every time. But Trey King looks really good too, and I like Antoine Wesley. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of those 4. I think those are 4 of your B studs this year. So. I hope I'm right though. All right, we have a basketball question by Joe, which I know you always appreciate. This one comes from Juicebox. He wants to know who are Beard's next 2 commits, and what do we think the difference? Why has Beard and his staff been so successful in their recruiting trail?
Right. Well, as to the first question, I mean this is the obvious answer, but Ryan Murphy and Antoine January are the guys who look most likely right now. Both of those guys coming in late September for visits. Both of them have spoken glowingly already about Texas Tech, and I mean they haven't just come out and said that they're a package deal or anything, but those guys are really tight, and it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if I think Murphy may be coming a day earlier or something like that. And if Murphy were to go ahead and pull the trigger, then I think that could trigger January as well, and you got both of those guys. It just really sounds good for Texas Tech with both of those players, and they're both really good-looking players. Now, as far as the second part about what makes Beard different, well, he's just a different cat. I mean, that's what he is.
He's an animal, isn't he?
Yeah, big cat.
He has that energy that. So you look throughout history. I know you studied a lot of history for school and everything. If you look through the people that have made history, generally they have tremendous energy. and he definitely qualifies.
Yeah, he does. The energy and the confidence and the belief. He's a can-do sort of a guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's more than anybody else. He fully, I mean, a lot of coaches say, well, I expect to win every game and we expect to win champion, but he really believes it. There's no question about it. And when you got that sort of belief and that kind of energy, and that's just different. I mean, now look, Bob Knight was the same way to a certain extent, but he was on the backside of his career. He didn't have quite the energy that Beard did, and he didn't place the emphasis on recruiting that Beard did either, or Beard does either. So, I mean, he was more of let's win it with X's and coaches and X's and O's and discipline and coaching and so forth. Beard really does put an emphasis on recruiting, and he doesn't buy any of the nonsense about, oh, you can't recruit to Lubbock or anything like that. He's going to laugh at something like that. So he's a believer. He's a can-do guy. He's got the energy. He's got the confidence, the whole package.
Absolutely, and I think that I like that you compared him and Bob Knight. And Bob Knight had like the gruff exterior, though. I mean, there was a certain part of the recruits out there, a large portion of recruits that just weren't going to go play for a style like Bob Knight. Now, I'm not saying that Beard is soft on these players by any means, but he is considered a player's coach. And I think ultimately what really stands out to me about Beard is that he's so genuine. I can't tell you how many interviews I've had with recruits and guys who ended up committing, and the reason they did was because they said everything Coach Beard told me throughout the recruiting process, everything he said he would do, everything he said that would happen has happened, and he has done, and then even gone an extra mile. I know Kevin McCollum was one. He said, look, everything Coach Beard told me has come to fruition, and that's why I'm going to be a Red Raider. So, I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that as far as on the recruiting trail. You got the energy, the great communicator, the belief, you know, he's genuine. I mean, he's the whole package, and we're living in the golden age of Texas Tech basketball. I think it's only going to get better and better, Mighty Joe. So, great stuff. Great stuff from you as always. Thank y'all for watching, and until next time.